Welcome to Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, the place for you to break free from the norm and celebrate your life. Because what we believe in our hearts becomes our reality. This is Magical Moments with Alena.
Welcome to Magical Moments. And I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And as I said on the show when we first started this is a new little format. We're going an hour long because we heard you. We knew how much you loved this show. And you said you want more, you want more. So here we are. We're giving you more. So we've changed the name from 30-Minute Moments because it doesn't apply anymore to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And I was thinking, as I was sitting in my living room, because it's way too cold to sit on the porch anymore, but I'm sitting on my couch, and I was just thinking, how many of us really are sick of living the mundane life? How many people out there are just going through the routine? Are doing things, okay, when Christmas was here, we bought Christmas presents because we're supposed to buy Christmas presents. We had people over even though we don't like them, and we celebrated Christmas, but it wasn't really Christmas for us. It was just Christmas. How many of us go to work, come home, cook dinner, watch a little TV, go to bed, get up, do the same thing. Maybe we add exercise in there. And we're doing this, just the same thing, this mundane, and just living it and not expecting more. How many of us stand in line, everywhere we go? We're in line. And we've deadened to the mundaneness. This is just the way life is. You do what you have to do. You walk through just because you have to walk through. This is mundane living, folks. We're not meant to do it. When I sat there in my living room, I thought, oh my gosh, how sad that is. And I don't mean that everybody who feels they're living a mundane life is sad. I mean that you don't have to live it anymore. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job, leave your spouse, leave the kids behind, and go to a beautiful island and sit in the sun. Although that does sound nice on some days. But it's not about that. It's how do we change the life right here, right now, where we are, and maybe not make big changes, but how do we add the magic? How do we get from mundane to magic? That's my next guest. That's what we're going to talk about. Chad Lefebvre is a philosopher and a psychonaut. Or not. Psychonaut, excuse me. I don't think he wants to be a nut. Chad is well studied across various disciplines, including neuropsychology, cybernetics, complexity theory, game theory, philosophy, and spirituality. And you're thinking, oh, Alena, where are the simple terms? When you meet him, you're going to love him. He does talk in very simple ways that we understand and gives us wonderful examples. And we're going to get to this magicness of life. He is an avid proponent of the nouveau enlightenment, believing that humanity is at an existential inflection point philosophically, politically, and ecologically. Chad is a teacher of being-based and sustainable approaches to living. There we go. A being-based, meaning being conscious, and a voice for progressive transformation. He is committed to helping individuals reclaim their power and humanity so that they may find peace and happiness in the context of living. Also, he is the founder of the Most Important Conversations. It's TMIC, and it's on Facebook, guys, and it's pretty cool. It's a weekly workshop on being and creativity, okay? So with that, I'm going to bring Chad on. Hello, Mr. Chad Lefebvre. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you today, Alena?
I am doing well. All right. So most people, well, what is the statistic? I think it's 98% now live this mundane way of being, doing what we're supposed to do, living in this world. I don't know. Did you ever live a mundane life? And can you tell us about it?
I did live a mundane life. I think most of us naturally fall into living a mundane life because of the way our culture and our society actually is set up. It doesn't have to be that way, though.
No.
When I was living a mundane life, I was, and I'm not working a job wrong, but I was working a job that I was not passionate about, I did not love. And so I was going through the motions. It was a well-paying job. It was a desk job. And so I was doing what I observed, as a child and a teenager growing up, what everyone did. And I thought this was life. And I got to this point after being in this job for about 8 years where I just said there has to be more. This can't be all that life is about.
Yeah.
And so I actually quit my job, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
Wow.
I didn't even have a plan. I just knew it wasn't this. And I had a deep trust of self that if I put myself in a situation that I knew I had to recover from, in this case, quitting a job and not having another one, that would force me to expand and to grow and to come up with solutions I otherwise wouldn't come up with. And I just trusted I would do it.
Wow. Now, Chad, I have to say, I have that feeling of self also, that I will always end up all right. And that was, I don't know where that comes from. That's just, I've always had that. But I have never purposely thrown myself into jumped out of the plane without a parachute and said, okay, I will just land wherever. I have to give you kudos on that. That's very big. I too was, it was interesting because I was an unconscious competent, meaning when I was born and from when I was just growing up all the way through, I always had this feeling that a closeness. I was always very spiritual. I kind of did. I was talking to my mom this weekend, and she said, you always did what you wanted to do, no matter what we said anyway. And it's true. I did. I went with friends. I had incredible experiences as a kid. I always knew I would be fine. I didn't have a problem with, I just enjoyed life. Didn't enjoy the Catholic school very much and the nuns. They didn't understand me. I don't know why, but they didn't understand me. But it didn't matter. But anyway, my mom said I had a rabbit's foot in my pocket, and I did. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until all of a sudden, everyone was pushing me to get married. And by default, because I had lived in this house with this person, didn't matter if we were in a relationship or not, but we were. And my father said, you have to get married. And that was it. And that's the way our family was. And that's the way it had been for generations. And this is what you had to do. And so I ended up marrying this man. And that put me in. All of a sudden, it was very funny. I remember saying to God, I was waiting to get married. And you're in that little room with your dress and everything, and you're waiting to walk up the altar. And I said, God, if it's sunny, I'll take that as I can run. And if it rains, I'll take that I have to go through with this. And do you know what? The universe made it partly sunny. That was so not fair. So I went through with it. But I'll tell you what, when I was in the marriage, I lost what I call my magic. I lost it. And we were in, because my sense of identity was taken away. I've told listeners this before, so I won't, but I lost the magic. That's the important thing. I didn't see the beauty of life. I didn't see the thankfulness. I didn't live on this plane where everything just came into being. I lost it. I had to learn. I went on a mad quest. Because I was an unconscious competent, I didn't know how to gain it. So I had to learn how to get that magic back. It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about that is why did the magic leave? And
that's a good question.
I firmly believe, Alena, that we are all born creators.
Yes.
If you think back to your childhood, when your imagination was just on fire, and you saw possibility everywhere, and you saw potential in everything, and life was truly magical because there was no perceived limitations.
Yes.
And then over time, what ends up happening to all of us as children is first it's our parents that they start to tell us what we can't do, what we shouldn't do, and they start putting up walls and boundaries.
Right.
And as children, we don't have the life experience or the perspective to be able to realize that those boundaries, are in many cases helpful in trying to protect us, but often they're not to protect us from anything that's going to physically harm us. Often those boundaries are our parents' own fears,
right?
That they are projecting onto us, and so they create these walls, and then we go into school, and then there's more walls set up. And so if you consider we're all born creators with this ability to, as you always say, tap into the magic. But then over time, the ability to tap into that magic gets whittled down and becomes more and more muted because so many walls are being put up around us in terms of how we're supposed to behave, what we're supposed to think, what we're supposed to do. And very quickly, by the time you're in your late teens and early 20s, you've been well indoctrinated into the system that we currently have.
That's true. That's true. Chad, I want to make it so that people see it kind of crystal clear, and they may, but I have an example because when I was young, like I said, if I wanted, at 7 years old, we had a veterinary hospital on my front steps. You know what I mean? No one didn't tell me I couldn't be a vet. And we had a dead end at the end of our street. And I decided to do I wanted to test the sonar of bats. So I set up, I was an interesting child. I set up all this tinfoil and stuff. I was trying to see how I could direct the bats by using something reflective like that. Would that work? I was 9 years old to get the bats to go a certain way. I was trying all sorts of things. Nobody told me I couldn't. It wasn't until the school, the nuns would say, well, that's not important. Why are you doing that? And that's what happens, everyone. That's what happens. They don't say, "Oh, that you shouldn't be doing that." It's not like that. It's, well, why do you want to do that? That's not important. It's subtly put into you. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you start to conform. You start to conform in little ways. The gifts that you were given, the curiosity, the creating is squished into, well, no, the question can't be answered in that way. You might be right, but the question is better answered this way. That subtlety is how they conform us into thinking, into conformity. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to give a very clear picture because a lot of people think, oh, no, they're great. No, that subtlety is what kills you. It twists you into a mundane life.
Yeah, and what's really at work here, which a lot of people may not realize, is we're talking about external factors that start to kind of push us into boxes and stuff like that. But really, those external factors exist because of the way our brains work. So all human beings are perpetually in a war of their own mind between the things that will guarantee their safety, security, and survival as a creature,
right,
as an animal,
right,
and the higher consciousness of all things being possible, unlimited potential, and creativity. And we're in this war because the creative side of things, our lower mind sees it as inherently risky. We're going to do things that we may have never done before or that likely won't work out. And I say likely because I'll use the example of my daughter. When at the age of 8, she showed this profound interest in filmmaking. She had a little iPhone. She would record video, and then she would come and work on my iMovie application, and she would, edit the video together and put music. And I looked at this. I was like, wow, as an 8-year-old, and she's making, little movies, and no one's taught her anything. She's just figuring it out. And now, the lower mind, parent would and not doing this maliciously or anything. It's always from the perspective of they think it's in the best interest of the child.
Right.
But would try to inject a little bit of realism, and that's the subtlety you're talking about.
Yes.
So they might say, it's nice that you have that hobby, but, most people won't become a famous director.
Yes.
So you might want to have a plan B.
Oh, yeah, that famous plan B,
right?
which you end up doing.
Which you end up doing as your plan A, but then you're in your 40s or your 50s, and you're like, why did I do this?
What happened?
This is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Yeah.
So is she doing her movies?
Well, she's 13 now. I got her a MacBook Pro, and I got her some cameras, and instead of telling her she couldn't, I just keep telling her she will, if this is truly what she wants. And so since then, she's gone on to direct a couple of plays at the school that they've recorded and sold the DVDs, and she comes up with her own scripts, and she, convinces her friends to join her on a weekend, and she films them, and she's doing it. She's like a little Steven Spielberg in the making.
Love it.
It's because I just didn't want her to believe that she couldn't accomplish what she felt she could.
Exactly.
But
this is what happens. It's very subtle.
Yeah, it's the fear. It all comes from fear.
Yeah, it comes from fear. And it's instilled into us. So we all are living these lives of mundaneness. Well, I want to be right back because I want to start leaping into how can we change it. You're listening to Magical Moments, and I'm your host, Alena Chapman. We're talking with Chad LaFave, and this is truly how do we move out of that mundaneness and into the magic.
You're listening to Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, helping you discover your true purpose every Sunday on WOWO and at WOWO.com.
Welcome back to the Magical Moments. And I'm your host, Alena Chapman, and we're with Chad LaFave. Now, Chad, we just spoke about all these, the mundaneness. How in the heck did we end up living these mundane lives? How are we always wondering what could be? And it is fear and that very powerful suggestion we were all offered as kids when we were growing up that became our life. But isn't there a way that you have a very cool term that I like. I like this. You talk about we've all been conformed into being mundane, and it's a consumer. It's a consumer. And I'm not talking about just a consumer in buying things. You're going to the store, the consumer index it's not just that. It's a consumer mindset. And how do we move from that to a creator? I like those terms, and I'm coining that with you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you've designed this, and tell us a little bit of what it really means.
So the distinction of creating versus consuming is actually one of the topics in our curriculum at the most important conversations, that workshop that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And when we deal with creating versus consuming, it's important to understand the difference between the two. Human beings are either one or the other at any point in time. We're either being creators or we're consuming. And like you said, it has nothing to do specifically with buying of things, although it is related in some ways. But that's
sure.
When we're buying things, when we're consuming things, products and stuff like that, that's just an extension of a consumption way of being. So we're talking about ways of being here when we talk about creating versus consuming.
Exactly.
So I'll distinguish them. So a creator is someone who's generating life. They are someone who is stepping forward into the unknown, and they are coming up with ideas and possibilities that don't otherwise exist. and they are stepping forth to make them a reality in physical space.
So it's coming from inside them, right? It's coming from inside them and from the universe. But it's all one coming out into the world. I want to make that clear. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it comes from, so one of the things that I teach is that intention, one's intention. I don't mean like I intended to go to the grocery store, but I didn't have the time. I don't mean that kind of intention. I mean actually an intention that governs your life. What do you stand for? What are you here to deliver to your community, your family, to the planet? And it's not about a job or a doing. It's a way of being. So, for example, my way of being, my intention is one word. It's bliss. So my intention
I love that.
Is everything I do and step forward into is coming from a place of bliss. And therefore, I'm able to deliver on that. Consuming, on the other hand, and different than creation, if creation is generative and taking action and is aligned with and coming from your intention, consuming is just the opposite. It's it's a passive way of engaging life. You're not generating. You're consuming what others have already generated. Now, in the case of shopping, like you mentioned, that's an example of consuming, but it's the most obvious one. So we're consuming products and services other people have created. We didn't create them. But you can do that in other ways as well. You can consume your day away, quite frankly, just with the way that you're engaging with things. Are you generating or are you consuming? So, for example, every morning I have coffee time with my wife, Tara. If I was consuming coffee time, I would get up and unconsciously just go through the motions of pouring a cup of coffee, sitting down and drinking it and kind of zoning out. If I was a creator to create my coffee time, I would be engaged and generating what is this coffee time experience. Do we have the fireplace on? Have we lit some incense? Maybe we have a bit of music. Are we having interactive dialogue and really being present in the moment?
Yes.
So another way to think of it is when you're creating, you're absolutely present with who you absolutely are at the most essential level. And when you're consuming, you're kind of unconscious, not present, just going through the motions, not generating anything. And unfortunately, that's the way most people in our society are going about their day. And
that's exactly right.
I'll end it with this. When you talk about mundane, what you're really talking about is living a life as a consumer.
Exactly.
As someone who's consuming life and isn't creatively generating life.
That's exactly right. I want to talk about the creator. Because we've talked a lot about the mundaneness, and I think everybody gets it. And I want to move on because I love this section right here. Because let's take that coffee in the morning. And I do the same thing. And I bring that in. I think of it as creating sacred moments. And when you start to really, now yoga, if you're a true yogi, this is what that belief is. If you are a real, if you're a Taoist or a person who studies the Tao, again, it's this being present. It's not just being present. It's getting into the flow. I remember in the Tao, they talk about this man cutting the meat. And you watch him, and it's like when he was cutting the meat, it was with such incredible flow. It was like the knife wasn't even touching the meat, and the meat would just be sliced. And he had done it, and he just didn't even think about it. It was just the flow. He's in the flow. He's just released. He's in the process. He is enjoying, and it's all that matters. He's making that sacred. It's making things sacred in your life. That's how you stay in the present. Having that coffee, creating the experience. It is becoming a creator, and it's also a sense of all of a sudden opening yourself to the magic of the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's how I see it, because you can just have that cup of coffee. When I have a cup of coffee, I make a creation. I put my little bit of milk in. Because I'm a new coffee person, I put a little bit of sugar in. I put my collagen in, which actually alters the taste, and I like it. And then I sit down either in my living room that looks out onto the trees or on my porch. And the dogs come around me and sit, and it's peaceful. And sometimes if I'm home and I'm going to be staying there for a while, I'll light candles. But it's a time of peace. It's a time for me to sit and think about my day. And I'm totally present, and not only that, I worship that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's having those little times all throughout the day and everything that you do that you worship, how I treat that person. You start to become a creator because you start to really think, I'm going to talk to you, Chad, today. How am I going to make this special? How am I going to make this enlightening for myself and others? How am I going to give to him? And that changes how I even talk to you. It's becoming a creator in every facet of your day. And it makes it sacred. And it also brings the magic. It's the start of the magic. Do you agree?
I do. And what you're describing there is, you're being very present and intentional, and therefore you are having to generate. You couldn't just create. The coffee moment you just described with your dogs out on the porch looking at the trees and all of that, or knowing you're going to speak to someone and being really attentive and present to what you want to talk about, that is taking energy from you, not in a bad way, but it's requiring you to generate something. Like, you can't just assume that it's going to happen unless you do something about it, right? So it's interesting. To be a creator means to ultimately take responsibility for your life.
Ooh, that word, responsibility.
I know, and no one wants it, right? We all want the easy pill. But that's a consumer way of looking at life. Just give me the pill. What do you do with the pill? You consume it. So it takes nothing from you, right?
Right.
To be a creator means that you're taking responsibility for your life, and from moment to moment throughout your day, you are actively generating and creating it the way you want it to be.
You're listening to Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, and this guest is Chad LaFave.
Are you stuck? What about unhappy? Join Alena Chapman, author, mentor, and life coach for Magical Moments with Alena, as she challenges you to get out of the doldrums and start living your life to the fullest. In just 60 minutes, Alena will help you take control of your life and push you to do the things you've never thought you'd do. So get ready to take back your power and celebrate life with Magical Moments, featuring Alena Chapman, every Sunday on WOWO and at WOWO.com.
Welcome back to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman. All right, so we are talking with Chad LaFave, and we've just discovered all these things about how we live mundane. And we've also learned a little bit about being a consumer and how being a consumer, well, number one, how did we even get into that mundane state so that when we wake up when we're 40 and say, where did life go? But how does thinking like a consumer really keep us there, even though we want to change? And that's what happens. We get to 40, and instead of changing, we buy a car. Not cool. And so what happens when we get into the magic, become the creator? And I want to even take this further now. So, Chad, you were just about to talk about the changing into the creator and really getting that to be a part of our life. You had a system you were telling us about. Why don't you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, just as an example, we were talking about the different architectures that constitute a human being's life. And each one of those, there was the physical, the cognitive, the emotional, and the spiritual architecture.
Exactly.
And in each one of those, we have a choice whether we're going to generate and be present and be a creator, or whether we're just going to be passive and not generate and be a consumer. And I was going to give one example, which is the physical architecture, because it's the most easy for people to grasp. So if you consider let's just take your home. That's one example of physical architecture. Another would be your place of work, and also probably the places that you choose to occupy with your free time. Maybe it's a gym, maybe it's other recreational places, the movie theater, whatever. If you consider just your home now, just to bring it right down to something really simple, ask yourself whether your home is truly supporting your journey to be a creator, or whether your home is supporting you as just being in the mundane, being a consumer of life. And so one way to understand
that's very big.
What's in your home?
What's in your home?
Are the things that you've
Does it nourish you? Does it make you feel good? Is it a safe haven? Is it a place for you to rest and renew? Is it a place that brings you happiness and joy and peace? Or is it a place where you go and it's a mess, it's chaotic, your state of mind is crazy, you've got drama all the time, things are not where they are, things are always having to be redone, you never can find anything? Those are two totally opposite ways of living. One is a consumer and one is a creator.
Absolutely. And what we find is that people who've grown up from a consumption mindset, which is most people in the Western world anyway, they will fill their house with things that they've bought and consumed, usually things that they kind of liked in the moment, and it was sort of like an impulse buy or something like that.
Like Siri.
But it wasn't really designed.
I hate Siri.
Yeah. But it wasn't really designed to make you come alive, to bring you joy, to help you be that creator. So if you're saying, gee, I really wish I could, enter the magic of life, well, look around. Does your environment even support that? Or does it detract from it?
That's exactly right.
We've had people that we've worked with when they kind of really get this moment, like they've actually sold their house, sold their stuff, moved cities, and they decided, even they're in their 40s, and they decided, you know what, enough's enough. I want to enjoy life. I want to feel alive. I need to be, and the only time you feel alive is when you're creating, Alena. You never.
Of course. That's why I'm doing the inevitable you, to start tapping into that creative spirit and this creative way of being.
Absolutely.
Because that is the start of being the creator. And it even, and like I say, it helps with even parenting. When my middle son looked at me at 6:45 in the morning, and as I'm driving my other son to school, and says, Mom, I want to drop out of school. And 6:45 is not my crowning hour. You don't hit me with stuff. You just don't. And I looked at him and I said, you're kidding, right? And he said, no, I don't want to go. And I said, today you don't want to go? And I said, well, at first I thought, okay, now I can put on, you're supposed to go to school. This is where you're supposed to be. This is what you need to do to get to A and B. And if you don't go to college, you die. That's basically how my parents would have dealt with it. Okay. I could have been that person. But instead, I looked at my kid and I saw the pain. There was actually pain in his eyes. And I thought, what in the heck am I going to do? Am I going to send him to a place that he really hates? I've got to create this. I'm going to call on something bigger than myself. I'm going to sit and listen. My spirit. I'm going to listen to spirit. And I heard spirit say, just listen to him. Really, I opened myself up to spirit. I said, and it just said, listen. And so I said, okay, tell me what's going on. And I learned what he was going through on a daily basis. And I thought, we're going to change it. That's being the creator. And for me, being the creator is tapping into something higher so that you have a resource that if people understood that really everything they need is inside them and the connection they have to source and their soul. If we really understood that to the fullest extent, we would not have the anxiety we have now. We wouldn't depend on everybody outside ourselves solving our problems. We wouldn't be a victim anymore. We really would have the confidence, the strength, the calmness, and the peace to understand. By noon that day, Chad, I had everything set. I had an online school. I had researched several. I found a really good one. And then I had that. If he wanted it, we could do that one. I had set him up at Sylvan every night for 4 nights, so I know that the work would get done in a right way where I couldn't teach it, they could. And I also got him a counselor so that he could have somebody other than his mother. Although I think I'm pretty super, I think it's good that he had somebody else to talk to. And so I set him up in a system, but that was all spirit and me. That's the difference of being the creator than being the consumer. And it does change your parenting. It changes everything.
Yeah, it applies. That's what people need to understand. It's an important distinction you've just brought up, which is that being a creator doesn't just mean like being an artist or a photographer or a musician. Being a creator is a way of being that you apply to all of your life. So the
everything
you just gave about parenting, it's a great example. Ask yourself, those who are listening, what does a creator parent look like versus a consumer parent? My daughter had a school project this past week that she needed to work on. She had to create a moon. They were studying the different phases of the moon. And
cool.
she was assigned one of the phases, and she had to, come up with, she had to create a moon that basically looked like the phase she was representing and then be able to present it and speak about it. And so, a lot of parents would be like, well, go do your homework, and it's sort of like hands off. Or if it's parents with young kids, they pop them in front of the television or a video game. That's being a consumer.
Or the parent does it. That's what's happening in our school. All the parents do the homework.
Do the homework?
Yeah, they do.
But what I'm guessing is they're not generating and they're not engaged when you're just popping your kid in front of a television or you're just so. Now, a creative parent is someone who engages, who generates with the child, right? So sits down with them, actually works with them to help them, think through the problems of how am I going to create this moon? How am I going to create this project? What should it be like? And ask questions and takes the time to really generate with their child to be a creator. That's a creator parent versus a consumer parent, which is, go outside and play, go watch TV, leave me alone.
Right.
Essentially, you're just going through the motions. Sure, you're providing shelter and food and the basics, but you're not a creator, and you're not teaching your children how to be creators. You're teaching them how to just consume their way through life.
And that's the thing. It's when you become a creator, when you start being led by something bigger, and you start seeing, really, when I say the magic, you do start to see the magic in life, in everything. It's phenomenal what you see. And when you start to teach your kids to do that, just think how that's going to change their world, how it's going to change society. I mean, if you're a creator, say you go in and you want to, you're making the intention to connect with this person or the person that is, you go into the coffee shop and you're really going to connect. And all of a sudden you find yourself looking right into their eyes as they're talking. You're not getting drawn away by the phone. You're not looking outside. You're not looking at your papers writing, but you're looking right in their eyes, totally engaged. All of a sudden you see a spark in that person. You see a bit of their soul. You really start to see them for who they are. All of a sudden, you find yourself gaining this empathy, this true love for this person who's in front of you. It's magical. It's an overwhelming sense of beauty and peace when you do that. And that's magic in your day. You leave that coffee shop feeling so good that you just were privileged to get to see such a special part of that person. Now, isn't that a lot more fun and a lot better place to be? And plus, you've made a friend for life. But isn't that much better than going in and just, okay, my intention is to get this and this and this. And you sit down and you just do what you need to do and you leave. Mm-hmm. It's a different way of living.
It's a consumptive way.
It's a consumptive, it's a mundane. It's mundane.
Yeah. And it's always mundane because we don't feel alive. This notion of living in the mundane means there's a lack of joy and aliveness. And the reason that we're missing the joy and aliveness, and I love the example you just gave about like staring in the person's eyes, because we even consume each other.
Oh gosh, people. Yes. That's why we have energy vampires.
We take for granted, Elena's like this or Chad's like this, and we stop seeing the magic, the depth of the person. But again, it takes energy for you to generate, to sit down, be present, focus, and have that experience that you just described there. Whereas most people It's kind of like, you go into a fast food restaurant, it's like we're going through life so fast, do you want fries? Do you want ketchup with your fries with that, or whatever they
And we expect it now.
Through the motions.
And what do you mean your fry machine isn't working?
Yeah.
We want everything now.
We have no empathy because we fail to see the human being,
right? Because
we're consuming who they are. We've already decided who they are in a second.
They're in a system,
and that's it.
They're in a system.
And by the way, I want to let everyone, all your listeners, I want to let them off the hook a little bit here, because they might be saying, well, what do I do? I mean, what you have to realize is that it's not actually your fault consciously.
No.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Your brain wants to turn everything into something that's predictable and something that's habituated. That's just the way our brains work. So our brains are predisposed to being the consumer way of being. So it takes energy to be a creator, because we have to basically say, at this moment, I'm about to go sit down with so-and-so at the coffee shop. I'm present enough to realize, I sit down and I say, okay, what do I want? How do I want this conversation to go? What do I want this meeting to be like? Who do I want to be in this experience? Now you've stepped into the creator mode at that moment, because you're generating who you're going to be in that moment. You're not letting your brain consume the moment away through habit and, predictable things.
Now, yes.
So it's an important distinction.
It is. I just want to clarify. I do differ with you just a tiny bit. Because I think, yes, at first it's a very conscious way that you have to be. I am going to go in and I'm going to have myself look in that person's eyes. But you know what? I think, what is a habit? Habits are always being removed and new ones are formed. What was a paradigm yesterday is not a paradigm today, but what you make today will be a paradigm tomorrow. That's a Bob Proctor quote. So these habits, what you're doing, if you're consistent in being this creator and making every moment, I call it making making your life a sacred place. Doing what you eat, how you talk to people, how you parent, how you take those moments for yourself. You build that way. Then all of a sudden that becomes your habit.
Absolutely.
And then so then it's automatic. And I'll tell you, it's also fun, because my gosh, leaving a person and feeling that magic, or getting so present that you start to really hear the deeper side of everything. I'll tell you that the magic doesn't stop. You're listening to Magical Moments from Alena Chapman, the host, and Chad LaFave.
Your Sunday afternoon continues with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman right now on WOWO.
Welcome back to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman. You know, I keep smiling every time I say that. I love the name Magical Moments. And we have Chad LaFave. And we are talking, guys, this makes or breaks life. It really does. This consumer versus a creator. And we just talked all about that. But we also tripped on this word, habit. Ooh. I told Chad, responsibility and habit, the two yucky words. But I want to talk a little bit more, because people, we get weak. And we think, oh my God, I got to break a habit. Oh, can't do it. And I think we've got the wrong idea of what a habit doesn't mean where our feet are in cement. A habit is just something we've learned and accepted as our norm. That's all a habit is. Am I right, Chad?
Yeah, the way that we define habit is just reinforced behavior.
Yes.
So
it's become your norm.
You've done it over and over and over again that you no longer even realize you do it. It's automatic. And by the way, remember earlier on in the show where we talked about the architecture of your life. The architecture of your life, like your home and what's in your home and stuff also is part of what reinforces habits.
It is.
People will always say to me, oh, I got to start going to yoga or something. And then I'll sit down with them. I say, well, why don't you? And they're like, oh, well, I got this and I don't have time for that. And then I have to. And so I said, well, your life isn't set up. The architecture of your life isn't set up to go to yoga.
Exactly.
So you either have to change something or let go of it and just not make yourself wrong for not going. But you can't live in two places, so to speak. But this whole thing about habit is important because we now know from modern neuroscience that it takes 66 days. Used to be everyone thought it was 21 days to create a habit.
Yeah.
We now know it's 66.
Ooh, that's longer.
The good news is that it's longer, but the good news is you can change yourself. You can, like you were saying, create new habits that align with being a creator versus a consumer. You just got to start. You got to take the action, and you have to do it consistently enough over time, and eventually you will start to live more and more in that magic. You will more and more start to experience flow in your life, presence, happiness, joy, all of these things that everyone knows they deep down want. It's all within your power to grasp. You just have to alter who you're being from moment to moment, stop being the consumer, and start being the creator. And within 66 days, you'll have a totally new outlook on life.
And I really think we always do the drastic change. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then when we fail miserably, I'll say, I don't want to use this example because it's not going to lead where I want, but famously trying to lose weight. We do it drastic. I'm going to fast for 21 hours. Well, have fun with that one. I can't do that. But, we go to the drastic and we do that with everything. And why not? And then when we fail, we say, that's, I'm not surprised. I couldn't have done that. And we don't, when I decide to change a habit, I always want to move more into the magic of life. So if for instance, when I go home and I can't find stuff, that drives me insane. And with 3 boys, they always move everything. So we had to put up some boundaries. And I had to organize my space in a way that makes me live with ease in my home. But every little space that I created, if I started with my office and I created that, then all of a sudden I allow myself to feel the pleasure of the change I just made. And I like it so much, and it's creating so much ease to be able to find my checks when I want it, my pens when I want it, my whatever. That feels so good. Okay, now I'm going to do the kitchen. Do you see what I'm saying? I do it. I'm famous for saying baby steps. You don't have to become the whole creator in everything. We don't expect you to have a whole day where you go out there and you're just creator in everything. Start in one way. And when you start feeling good, when you feel good, you're going to do it more. If you feel like you're a failure, you're not. So do the things that start helping you to feel good. If you have ease and flow in one area, oh my gosh, that feels so good. Look at what I can breathe. Wow. I think I'm going to do my workspace at work this way, Or I went into the coffee shop and I had this incredible person I now saw in my friend. I think I'll do that with another person tomorrow. That's a success. Do you see what I'm saying? I think
what you're saying is important.
We have
you're saying baby steps.
Babies. What about Bob? I always say, even my producer laughs. No, what about Bob is a great movie, guys. I say get the whole family, sit down and watch What About Bob. It'll crack you up. But what he achieves with little baby steps, it's incredible. It's important.
Yeah, well, and it's a great metaphor. I mean, we have to observe our language. So we say baby steps. What that means is like a baby learning how to walk.
Yeah.
You are going to have to relearn, because you probably haven't done it since you were a child, how to be the creator of your life.
It's so much more fun. So much more fun.
know? And so you have to give yourself a break and just, like you say, pick one area, pick one or two habits, focus on transforming them to be creator, not consumer. And once you've accomplished that, you can keep adding. And before you know it, like a baby, you're crawling, you're walking, you're running. And there's no timeline on this. You know, real creators know that you can't rush creativity, and you can't rush when it's gonna come out. So let's not beat ourselves up, make ourselves wrong because it's not happening fast enough. Fast, by the way, everyone, is a modern thing in this culture. It's not the way humanity has lived.
It's not the flow. It's not the flow.
Yeah.
And really, you want to be in the flow. I think when we're changing ourselves or transforming ourselves, let's say that way, because everybody's into transformation. So I like to call it evolving. I don't like transformation. That means we're changing ours. I don't like that. I like that we're evolving. We're okay as we are. We just want to be different. And if we want to be different, we have to evolve. We're not changing into a new person. So we have to do it in a way that we can do it. But the most important thing is, oh my gosh, give yourself kudos. Be happy with the progress you make. It's in every little step you take. Congratulate yourself. Thank God that he was, or he or she or it was with you. The universe was with you. Make it incredible. Say, thank you for giving me this experience. Have every step be an awakening, not a chore. And when you start to do that, then you're going to evolve faster, if that's such a word, but you're going to be evolving in the flow. I have to, as I evolve, I have to tell you a story. When I was on a plane, I was reading a really cool book. It was called Illusions. It's by Bach. And it was all about how things are in our reality. And I'm reading this book, and I closed the book, and there had been this stewardess who was just kind of, she kept her eyes down and everything. And she had this beautiful red hair. And I remember putting the book down, and I looked up at her, and I thought, I wonder what she's really like, because she looks so cool. And all of a sudden, she looked up at me, and her eyes got real bright, and she gave me this humongous smile. I got a doorway into just looking at her. And it was a gift. This is what happens when we start to live where we are a total creator, as you say. And me, it's that you are totally into the life that you're living, and you are grateful for it, and you're evolving. It's the magic of life. Mm-hmm. That was a gift. Now, Chad, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go?
Yeah, there's two places they could go. One is themostimportantconversations.com, which is our workshop where we deal with the nature of being.
Okay, that's great, too.
The other place is, and it's a long domain by intention and on purpose, because everyone wants everything fast, Elena, and they get super frustrated when they have to type themostimportantconversations.com. But that's part of the journey, guys.
Yeah.
The other place they could go is neurobe.com. That's spelled neurobe.com, and it stands for Your Neurology Defines Your Being.
And you get into all the science there.
All the science, the neuroscience, how the brain works, and how you can master yourself by mastering your mind. Yeah.
I love it. People need to look at that. And I'll tell you, folks, if you really want to learn how to tap into the magic spiritually, to really feel that connection, then you got to check out soulmanifesto.com, and that's what I do. Chad knows that. We're friends. So we kind of dip into each other's things. But yeah, it's all the same. It's just how you go about it, but it's the same thing.
Well, and I'm a big proponent of that, Elena, because as you know, with your online conference coming up, anyone who wants to tap into the magic should definitely take a look
at the online conference. And everyone wants to be a creator. That's the one. Remember, everyone, it's all about staying connected, truly connected to others, and truly connected to yourself and accepting. And the best part, staying connected to Source. And that's what Namaste really means. Namaste, and start being the creator.
This is Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, helping you find your inner self every Sunday on WOWO and at WOWO.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.